Hey, welcome to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where women business owners reclaim their power in the digital world. We shatter the myth that cybersecurity is too complex to master and transform protection strategies into clear, actionable guidance. This is your digital empowerment sanctuary, where cyber fear becomes cyber confidence. Whether you're protecting client trust as a therapist or safeguarding financial data as an advisor, you'll hear from women founders who've conquered digital challenges and security experts who speak your language. Every woman leading a business deserves to feel unshakable in her digital decisions, no matter her technical background. Are you ready to stop letting cybersecurity intimidate you and start letting it elevate you? Here's your host, Rachel Shanker.
Welcome back to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where we talk about practical ways women can protect themselves, their businesses, and their futures in our increasingly digital world. I'm your host, Rachel Shanker, a Silicon Valley technologist and owner of the award-winning managed service provider, CMIT Solutions of San Mateo. Today, we're joined by Marissa Stahl, founder and CEO of Cherry Creative, a bi-coastal digital marketing agency helping brands grow through social media, influencer partnerships, paid advertising, content strategy, and full-scale digital marketing execution. Marissa started her career in social media before building Cherry Creative in a strategic marketing partner for brands ranging from direct-to-consumer to CPG companies to personal brands and brick-and-mortar businesses. She's known for blending creativity with real business results and for staying ahead of where digital marketing, influencer culture, and AI are heading next. Marissa, thank you and welcome to the show. Happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So share with us a little bit about your journey, what you were doing before. I mentioned a little bit before Cherry Creative, but what pulled you into the marketing world?
Yeah, my journey is definitely unconventional. So I went to school for theater, for dramatic arts, theater acting, actually. And right after college, I was doing the traditional actor side hustle of, working at a restaurant. I was a personal assistant, I was a nanny, like all of those things. And I it's a very hard life. So if you know any artists in your life, be nice to them because people are meeting them all day long in those jobs. And I kind of quickly realized that if I was ever going to have any sort of artistic pursuit in my life, I had to also have a job that used my brain and filled my pocket so I could have a nice lifestyle as well. And kind of through that, just through a sorority sister of mine had started a social media agency, and I had kind of started to freelance social media at that time. It was really just like Facebook and LinkedIn, posting for a few very small businesses that I had convinced to let me help them out. And I got connected with a sorority sister of mine who had started kind of the first social media agency in LA. And same thing, like convinced her to hire me and take me on. And I very quickly became full time. And it's very synergistic because marketing is storytelling, and that's what you do in the theater. And I still find so many connections to that. And I'm still very active in performance and in the arts as well outside of work.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So, what was kind of the impetus? What made you realize, I'm ready to build my own agency?
I mean, I worked at my agency previously for about 5 years, and I think I had just reached a natural growth point of where I was growing in my career. I didn't want to start an agency. So I left and I wanted to freelance, I wanted to go in-house. I was applying for those jobs. And I did not want to be a business owner. Like I was very clear about that. Um, Mainly because the people that I had seen in my life who had owned businesses, how they modeled being a business owner, being a CEO, being a founder, it was not a life that I wanted. They were, working all the time, stressed all the time, and I was very clear about not wanting that. And it kind of happened to me, is what I say. And I got some amazing referrals, like right off the bat when I started freelancing, just like kind of looking for my new thing. And I kind of was really digging my heels in, not wanting to start an agency. And I actually reached out to a number of different business coaches because I was terrified that if I was going to choose to be a founder, choose to start my own company, that I was falling victim to that same life that had been modeled to me, and I knew that I did not want that. And I found an amazing business coach named Cara Duffy, and her whole philosophy is really your business should be what you need it to be and want it to be. And it's just really about building with intention and making the right choices and setting up the right system so that your business can be what you want and need it to be. So if I hadn't found her, I don't know where I would be today.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's very interesting because, you hear a lot of times people march out, I'm going to start my own business. I'm ready to do this. And it's rare that I hear somebody being like, I don't know if I want to, but I love that you met a resource that helped you kind of build that, because it is, I'm sure today you know, it's, it's good being your own business owner. It can be. It's hard. I mean, it's a whole different world, but
It's good and bad. I think it's really glamorized being an entrepreneur. And I think that a lot of times people go into it maybe a little bit naively of like, this is the best thing in the world, this like being that is the end all be all is like having your own company and being your own boss. And I'm like the first one to say that it's not for everyone. And sometimes it's not for me. But, I think people really need to know what they're getting themselves into before they like fully dive.
Yeah, I love that. So you are, you're bi-coastal, work in both New York and LA. Working in those two major creative markets, how has that kind of shaped your perspective? Do you see trends? Do you see that lag in trends, or like, is there a crossover, or how does that work for you?
There's definitely crossover, and but there's definitely so many differences between New York and LA, both in lifestyle and in brands and the way brands operate, and then also just me and how I work in either city. There is so many different trends and things that I lived in LA for 17 years. I recently just moved full time to New York, although I have been back to LA many times since I moved. But there's so many things that are really popular and like in the zeitgeist in LA that haven't quite made it to New York yet. And the same with New York that haven't quite made it to LA yet. That's a really interesting dichotomy. I think it really touches more on from the brand side of like the different people that we're trying to partner with, depending on what the brand's values are and like what they're all about. Sometimes they'll be naturally aligned with the more New York crowd or the more LA crowd.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think that's great to have those two kind of like visibility and just kind of to watch and see how you can support. It says a lot about you and your creativity and the business that you're building. So for someone who's hearing about Cherry Creative for the first time, how would you describe what your agency does?
Yeah, so we are a full service boutique digital marketing agency, and we're really a partner for the brands that we work with. And we work with brands on the CPG side, mostly e commerce brands, but brick and mortar as well, and kind of everything in between. We really are looking for the right founders and the right team to partner with. We are basically the entire marketing engine for a company. So there's a lot of times brands are working with an email agency, a social agency, or a social freelancer, a copywriter. We bring all of those things together and serve as an in-house team, but they don't have to build that in-house team.
Right, right. No, I love that. So you're full capacity. You mentioned how you are helping brands kind of fill the gap in their marketing teams. What are the common gaps that you see when you onboarding with a new client? What do you kind of see as their big gap?
A lot of times it's social is that they know of is the big gap, and then usually once we get under the hood, we kind of reveal a lot of other gaps. That's really how Cherry Creative expanded to what we are now. We started as just a social media agency because that was my background, but a lot of the brands that we were working with, once we got in the weeds, we were doing this beautiful creative on social, but then their email creative would come out or their paid ads creative would come out, and it was not aligned around the branding at all. And I'm just so proud of the work that we do that I weaseled my way in and convinced some of the brands that we worked with to over those channels. And I was like, I know we can do a better job and really elevate you 360 and make sure that everything is streamlined and aligned. Because a lot of times when you either have a marketing team that is stretched out over all these different agencies or all these different freelancers. They're not communicating and they're not talking to each other, and the brand is not moving and elevating together. It's a bit fragmented. So we bring everything together, moving as one team with the brand in synergy.
Yeah. I think sometimes companies may think marketing is just that social media posting. What are they missing about the modern marketing? Is it that it needs to be touched? They need it in social, they need it in print, what are the different components to create that modern marketing strategy?
Yeah, it can be hard. Marketing can be very fragmented because you can't really, in order to have a very successful marketing strategy, you can't just focus on one outlet. You can't just focus on email. You can't just focus on social. You can't just focus on partnerships. You need to really do it all. And, but when you do it all, it can really have a positive impact. And that's a lot of work. It's why we exist. I think a lot of times founders will come to me and they'll be shaming themselves because they will say, well, I can do the social. I used to do the show social. I should be able to do this. Like, no, you shouldn't be able to do this because you're running the company.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So, especially with social, there's this interesting thing that happens where there's this zero barrier to entry where just because anyone can log in, anyone can post a photo, anyone can post a video, a lot of times founders get in their mind that I can physically do this. It's not hard to upload a photo and post on Instagram. And so they'll shame themselves into thinking that they need help or support. But there's so much strategy and thinking that goes into the content that we're putting out, the content that we're curating and creating, the messaging that is aligned with it, the timing of it,
Oh, yeah.
the outreach to different influencers and those brand partners. So I always say, like, I've been doing this for 12 years and things are still changing and I'm still learning. So if I'm that way, then I don't expect you to have all of that knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, social media to me is, it is I don't do my own because I'm like, no, but I do. I'm just realizing I am kind of falling victim that I do have multiple people kind of posting different things. And that's something that I struggle with, is making sure my brand is across, and so I went through the process where I was like, okay, we're going to have one person, one team do this, because I can't have, the disjointed, because you could definitely see it. And it's, my goal is to make it more, even though I want to post about different things, they should still have a same theme, right?
That's why branding is so important.
Yes. Mm.
And yeah, if you're having multiple people who are creative, touching different points of the brand, a different designer doing one series of graphics over another, or like a different person doing email over social, it really has to go back to the brand and make sure that it's aligned. And if there's no one really keeping an eye out, things can get really disjointed. And even like a 10% deviation from brand is so noticeable to the consumer. So that's really how we came to be.
Yeah, no, I love that. You had a LinkedIn post that said, marketing is not sales. Can you kind of expand on that philosophy?
Yes, that one kind of went a bit viral.
Yeah.
It just was something that was irking me at the time. A lot of times, I mean, I'll talk about it in the lens of paid social versus organic social. A lot of times people expect, and by people I mean a CEO or maybe a COO, someone who doesn't really understand marketing and sales and what their points, what the purpose of them are. So for organic social, a lot of times CEOs or COOs or whoever's holding the purse of an organization, they don't want to invest in what it takes to have successful organic social because the ROI or the return on that is not as successful as paid social. And so the impetus of that post was that it's not as successful because it's not supposed to be as successful as paid social. Like, organic social and marketing is not a conversion channel, it's a storytelling channel. It's where you tell the story of your brand. It's where you connect with your followers. It's where you really nurture the relationship with your customer. You are, keeping them warm or warming them up if they haven't made a purchase. And if they have made a purchase, you're staying in contact with them and letting them know what you're up to. It's not to get them to purchase. It's just to communicate with them and to really build that relationship and build that community. Paid social or a sales channel, even if it's direct one-to-one sales or your sales team, their role is to get them to check out and convert. So the way that you're speaking on that channel is much different. It is with much more urgency. It's really one, brand to audience, and there's not a conversation there. And that is one of the biggest challenges we face in the marketing world is people who don't understand why it's important to invest in marketing because they're not seeing that it's returning that dollar to dollar investment. But if you cut off all of your marketing, your sales is not going to be as successful.
No, 100%.
Because marketing is warming them up to convert better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fascinating to me. Like I started my location of CMIT 5 years ago, and I was deep in corporate America in IT, and never really, I knew marketing, but not really. And so it's just fascinating to me to see all of the layers, the different channels. It's very interesting. And, I also had to kind of check myself because I was like, well, I'm not getting any referrals from that, or it's not paying off. And it's just, now I see 5 years later that it is just a market for me. It is having that brand out there, having that, continuity, always, that there's that longevity, that I'm still there. And that's what the purpose is. It's not for lead gen for me,
In the services business, you can think about it as like, if you're having a call with a prospect or a potential client, if you have good marketing, they're already 50% of the way there in wanting to work with you because they've already seen everything that you put out there. They've maybe listened to you on a podcast, or they've heard about your philosophy, or they've seen your work enough where they either reached out to you or wanted to have a call with you. If it's 100% cold, you have to work so much harder to educate them on who you are, what you do, and how you do it, and it will probably take triple as long, 3 times as long.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. You've talked about consistency being key. How do you help clients stay patient with that long-term strategy? Are there KPIs that you show them, or is it just knowledge and just continuing to, you know, um, teach them, about the strategy and how to look at it, or how do you help with that?
It's all of the above. We do month-over-month reporting so we can track, ongoing KPIs and our growth and progress per month and, the most successful posts or the most successful emails so we can iterate on those going forward. But over 50% of my job is education for our clients.
Yeah, I bet.
Talking to them about why things are the way they are. Okay, you're up 70% one month, then that because, for Black Friday, for example, your sales are probably going to be up 150% over Q3. But then in Q1, your sales are going to show that they're down 50%, but they're just back to normal. So you really have to know how to read your Shopify analytics, know that education. So you're not just looking at the numbers in a vacuum, you are looking at the full picture.
Yeah, that makes sense. What does separate brands that build loyal communities from brands that are, just chasing that follower count? What are those brands doing where they're getting that loyal community and there's engagement and, they're growing that way as opposed to the other way?
Yeah. Honestly, the answer is that I would say is they're really engaging with their community. They're not just speaking to, they're speaking with. I think brands that in order to really build a successful community, you have to be active on your own channels. So you have to be on your brand Instagram, replying to people's comments, but also engaging with the community where they are. So watching their stories, responding to their stories, commenting on things from the brand that pertain to you, and keeping that one-to-one relationship, and just remembering that maybe you're from a brand account, but it's still social media, it needs to be social.
Yeah, yeah, no, I like that. What kind of consumer behaviors are changing fastest right now online? Are you seeing, maybe people were engaging with this type of post and now it's more here? Are you seeing any of those kind of trends? Any changes?
Think that the consumer trends is more guided by how the algorithms or how the apps are really changing and amplifying certain types of content. It used to be that reels were, the number one type of content that you're putting out there. But in the past 6 months, carousels have really been growing in terms of their reach as well, which is great because sometimes those can be easier or less of a heavy lift to produce, but you still kind of need to do everything. I think it's an interesting landscape now with social because people really just want realness, especially with the rise of AI and AI touching so many parts of our lives. People really just want genuine people telling genuine stories. With brands specifically right now, people really want to see the faces behind the brands. They want to hear from the founders, whether they're eloquent or not. Honestly, if they're not eloquent, that's even better because it's a real human person. And, they're not a model, they're not an influencer, even though influencers and models are amazing and they can have brands too. But they really want to see the people behind the products that they're putting their dollars towards.
Yeah. What industry do you see that's really winning at that digital storytelling, or what's a good example?
I don't know if it would be a particular industry. I think it's more of a founder led brand that is letting the founder lead and show up. And that's hard, right? Because a lot of times CEOs and founders don't want to be on camera. They're not trying to be spokes face or something. And I really feel for the social media managers out there that are pulling teeth. You always see a lot of videos that joke on that of like, oh, when the social media manager comes and wants to see another video, and it's like people hiding behind a plant or something like that. But it's because those interpersonal stories within a company is really what is resonating with people right now because for so long in the beginning of Instagram, it was just all about everything looking perfect. And we all know that's not the reality.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about AI and marketing. You mentioned that. You shared a conversation about AI potentially changing, the entire social media landscape. What part of that excites you and what part of that kind of concerns you? I think you touched on the concerning part, but how are you using AI in a positive way?
I have really been optimizing my system so much with AI, and I think that can be a really powerful tool, just like making my own executive assistants, like using Claude Cowork and Claude Code to really streamline spreadsheet processes. I have tried so many different AI creative apps for like photo and video. They're all bad. I think if you really care about brand and you really care about creative, there isn't a solution. Will there be one? Maybe one day. I think for certain things, yeah. Like I think for CPG product shots or something like that, there are some okay solutions and some pretty good ones, but we are still going to need human contact, especially when it comes to CPG companies or e-commerce brands that are selling a product like a beauty product or makeup or a food product. You want to see real people interacting with the product, and I think that's only going to become more and more important with the rise of AI. Every single industry is going to be disrupted in some way by AI, and I think it's a little bit too soon to tell how. I'll see these X threads or X tweets or threads or whatever you want to call them all about, I replaced my entire social media team with this 3-word prompt.
Oh, no.
Exactly. And my philosophy is just kind of the same thing that I was talking about at the beginning of this conversation. You can use AI for those types of things, but there's no one bringing it all together. There's no architect who is protecting the brand and protecting the story that you're going to tell. We can lean on these tools to make us more efficient and to maybe be a brainstorm partner, but you really need someone who is protecting your strong brand vision if you want to make sure that the right message is being put out into the world.
Yeah, makes sense. Are your clients interested in AI tools? Do you talk about with them? Do they ask you how you use AI, or is it just not a conversation that's happening right now?
Some of them ask, some of them are not, are not using it at all, I can tell. Some of them ask and are, happy for us to use it. I always say we don't use it for copy or really anything creative. Sometimes we'll use it for brainstorm for a shot list or something like that, but it doesn't ever know the full context, even if you're training it on so many different things. There's always tweaks that need to be made. And I'm open about it. I'm like, we really use AI to improve our systems and our productivity, which gives us more time to put into the creative. But for photo and video, I haven't found anything that is good enough to be up to my standards. And look, I would want some, like, which is controversial. Like, I think that there was a great AI tool that um, could make us brand video that was amazing and convincing and a great representation. It would save our clients a lot of money, which is, we work with a lot of small businesses, so that's always top of mind. Um, we have used AI for some commercial audios, like for videos like that. I think that can be a useful tool. So I think there's ways that it can be incorporated, but when it comes to like true creative and a real creative vision, I don't think that it's there.
Yeah, I talked to somebody the other day, and they're doing a podcast, and it's all AI. It's an AI podcast, and I was like, "Oh, interesting." Full disclosure, not AI. I mean, it's like how like that's wild. I was like, "Oh, I gotta go check that out." Yeah,
I think people can tell, like, I really do, and I think that there's that term AI slop gets thrown around so much now, but there really is so much of it out there, and we are real humans, and we wanna hear thoughts from real humans and stories from real humans, and, the struggles of real humans and the highlights of real humans, and I don't think that that will ever be able to be duplicated 100%. There might be times when it gets really good, but I think that it's always like 10-15% off.
yeah. Let's talk a minute about social media evolution. I know how fast are the platforms changing right now compared to when you first started? I mean, do you see is it fundamentally changing, or is it just like they're kind of calling it something different, or are you seeing changes?
It's interesting, this morning I was thinking about this and for whatever reason, and I was like, wow, Instagram hasn't really had a crazy big change in a while. Knock on wood.
Right.
I'm like, now that I say that. But there was a period, I remember burned in my brain like where I was sitting when stories became a thing and reels as well, and how revolutionary but also scary that was as a social media manager of wow, this is a whole new channel that we now are responsible for producing content for and like our clients want. I think that now the platforms are more, I don't know, I feel like the last year or so they haven't had these huge drastic changes like those time periods. That will probably not be the case by the end of 2026, but I think it's just really getting into the specifics for each individual brand of what is the kind of content that is resonating with our specific audience right now across all of the available content outputs that we're able to create. What format and what message is what our audience wants to hear? Let's figure that out, create more of that so that we're feeding them what they really want to hear.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about short form video? What's your thought on that for brand growth?
Great. Yeah. I mean, I think people want to see people want to be entertained. So, video is one of the quickest ways to capture someone's attention. And when it's done right, it's amazing.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about cyber data, consumer trust. With influencer marketing, affiliate programs, and, customer data is everywhere. How important is that trust and transparency becoming, or how are you helping your clients with that?
I think, well, trust is everything when it comes to any brand. I think once you erode that trust with your customer base, it can be really hard to gain it back. And that can be done in a number of different ways. In terms of the influencer lens of, if someone is being truthful about a product that they're recommending or not. I think there's definitely strategies to take to nurture an influencer relationship. Most of the brands that we work with and kind of what we advise is to work with an individual on a more long-term basis instead of just a one-off post. And that's kind of changing in terms of the influencer landscape in the past 6 months to a year anyway, is it's not as common for brands to just pay for one-off posts. Most brands really want to develop smaller or less, in quantity influencer relationships that have more longevity
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
and really have a relationship with someone who actually uses the product on a regular basis that is then fruitful.
Yeah. What do you see, 5 years from now? What will digital marketing look like? Or what are you thinking it's going to happen?
I mean, I have no idea.
I know, look into the future, right? Or something you're excited about, it doesn't have to be 5 years. Like, what about a year from now? Or like, what are you, are there, I guess, what does the future look like?
I think it's just more authentic stories,
I love that.
which we've already been seeing, but as AI is touching every point of our digital lives, a real person with a real authentic struggle or story or customer experience is going to be really, really important. Sometimes we'll see really rough videos of like a founder calling a customer and like that conversation goes viral because it's so real and authentic. And I think that is really what people are craving, is something that is truthful and like grounded in reality.
It's interesting you say that, because there's somebody I follow on Instagram that he's a car dealer, and like he talks about the deals. Like his salespeople come in, they pitch the deal, and it's like, I don't care about cars.
Fascinating.
Totally. But just to hear whatever the deal is or whatever the story is, and I'm like, why am I following this car dealer? I don't even know where he is.
Mine of that is Nate the Hoof Guy. Do you know about him?
Oh, I don't know. No.
This is a guy on TikTok who he only posts videos. You never see his face, but he has a really calming voice, and he um, cleans the hooves of horses, or maybe it's cows.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, of like dirt and muck?
Yeah, like he'll replace their horseshoes and they'll have, something embedded in them and he'll dig it out and he'll put antibiotics on it. But it's like just videos of that over and over again. But it's cool and it's interesting and it's like weirdly calming, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very interesting. All right, so now we've come to the part of the podcast where I'm going to ask you some quick little rapid fire questions. No right or wrong answer, just way to close out. So Instagram or TikTok?
Right now, TikTok.
Okay, great. Best marketing campaign you've seen recently? It could be hopefully one from Cherry Creative.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Um, well, it's a bit controversial. I would say the Real Actives one by Alex Earl, but I don't necessarily think it was that good of a. I think it was a very successful marketing campaign, but where there were some issues that I think happened with it. That
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. What is the most overrated social platform?
the most overrated Threads, I think.
Threads. Mm-hmm. And do you work in a coffee shop or a home office, or an office?
I Yeah, I mostly go to a co-working space. And yeah, that's like my main spot. So
Yeah, I like that. What is one app you couldn't run your business without?
right now, Claude. But other than that, Gusto for sure, which is our payroll software.
Yes, yes. Good business owner. What is your biggest social media pet peeve?
Um, Great question. Biggest social media pet peeve. I think it's just thoughtless copy where it just is not good.
It could be better. Yeah, exactly. What is your favorite way to unplug?
I love going on a long walk outside. So when I am in LA by the beach, I'll do like 5 miles. In New York, it's on the West Side Highway, but just being outside on a long walk is my absolute favorite.
Yeah, I love that. And what does being cyber savvy mean to you?
I think it's just always learning, always educating, always talking to other people, women or men in the space, and learning what they know. Something I always say to my team is that I only have one brain. My brain only knows the things that it knows. It can only think of the thoughts that it will think of. That's why we need collaboration. That's why we need other team members, and that's why we need conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for Marissa. I really appreciate you coming. I love this conversation. Really highlighted how marketing today is just so much more than posting content. It's psychological, it's storytelling, it's data relationship and trust, all working together. To our listeners, please check out our show notes for ways that you can connect with Marissa, and we appreciate you listening. Marissa, thank you so much for coming to the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so nice speaking with you.
Yeah, have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
The Cyber Savvy Woman podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Hey, thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.